these are two friends that I made, that I came to know through Instagram. Somebody who says some wonderful things about Hinduism, Ayurveda. My soul connected with both of them. Minakshi from London and Carrie from Toronto, from Ontario, Canada. It just, every time they sent me posts, I just was in wonderment, because for me, I have some questions. When I was young, say about 70 years back, 69 years back, my grandmother used to say, which I'm going to get confirmed with the Minakshi, she used to tell us every time we sit down and eat, she'll say in Tamil, kadichu murungu, kadichu sapada, kadichu murungu. She used to say, bite your food and eat. She says, chew, bite and eat. We just listened. I never asked questions. I don't know what it was. And then she also used to say, when it wasn't cooked, my mother-in-law also used to say that. And I used to just accept. We never asked questions, because now people are scientifically proving so many things. So I'm going to ask Minakshi how true it is. She can start off, and then I will ask Carrie questions. I'm so thrilled to be here today. So she used to say, this food was not cooked today. She'll say, this vegetable is not cooked to tenderness. So anything which is crunchy, like a native vegetable, like, snake gourd or bitter gourd or okra or anything, if it's crunchy, they will always say it's not well cooked. The seeds have to be cooked, everything. So I don't know why. Is it part of Ayurveda that you have to cook the food you eat? You cannot eat raw food, because in our religion, in our community, only cucumber, tomato maybe, and onions maybe were not cooked. Otherwise, the rest of the food we always cooked. So I didn't know. Even tomatoes, instead of eating it raw, we used to, boil it, puree it, and have it. Had a better taste when we make our rasams and everything. So these are the questions I want to pose to you, Minakshi, and you will let me know. You will let me know whether there is any scientific evidence behind it, because I just follow it blindly. Go ahead, Minakshi. Yes.
Thank you, Vijiji. And first of all, thank you both for inviting me today. Absolute honor to be in your company, and everything that you said, likewise. It's been an absolute joy to know you guys over the last year. And yeah, to dive straight into your answer, absolutely. Chewing is one of the most important parts of our sort of eating process, if you like. Because to answer your first question, when you chew your food, we are chewing it down, we're breaking it down, we're doing the job, we're helping our gut, we're helping the agni. We don't have teeth in our stomachs, we have teeth in our mouth for a reason.
Right.
And that's where the digestion process starts. And we have saliva in the mouth, which interacts with the food, which aids in the digestion. So there is absolutely science behind it. And with regards to your question about the cooked food, absolutely. When we cook our food, it's for the same reason. We break it down, it's easy to digest. So it's not so much about what we're eating, it's the how easy is this for us to absorb the nutrients from our food. It's not what we eat, it's what we digest in Ayurveda. Ayurveda takes that process that step further. The intelligence is so much deeper. And so when we cook the food, your ancestor, your grandma was right. When we cook the food, we're breaking it down, making it easier for our body to absorb. And that's the main reason why we cook our food. And now I think there's so many more studies coming out. I don't know, Carrie may be able to sort of confirm this, that they're actually saying that certain foods, when we cook them, they actually release more nutrients. And so science is always evolving, but I think the ancient wisdom, they just knew from the beginning. And
I have a question here. Some people tell me that if you cook it a lot, it will all get lost in the water that you steam and cook. But I used to tell them, I use very little water, the water that almost gets absorbed, because I feel if there's too much of water, that might get wasted. Yes, very little water, and you cook these vegetables in salt. So it retains its greenness, and also the water gets absorbed. So I don't think the nutrients are lost because they're using water and we are cooking it well. So they say you only cook, half cook and eat. So I really don't know how true that is, but I cook my food well.
Yeah. So look, right, the way I would see it is, if we take the food and if we pass it through a laboratory, then yes, in theory, which one retains more nutrients? The raw version. But again, Ayurveda takes this intelligence much further. What's the
Mm.
point of having a food rich in nutrients when your body can't absorb it? When your body's not taking the nutrients, it's not, the nutrients aren't going where it needs to go. So that's why when we cook the food, that's what it helps us to do. It helps us to break it down to absorb it better. So in theory, some foods, yes. Like I said, if we had to test it, yes, they're going to have more nutrients in raw form. But we need to go. It's time that we need to go beyond that now. So all these raw foods, raw smoothies. A lot of my clients are coming to me having been on this diet and feel awful. They're
Mhm.
not getting the benefits. They feel awful. They look awful. They're not. There's no nutrient absorption there. They're still having the deficiencies that they were prescribed with. So there's got to be more going on here. And again, that's where Ayurveda comes in. They understood that the bioavailability of food is important. The digestion of it is important. So that's why the cooking process, it's kind of like a balancing act. Yes, some of the nutrients may be lost in cooking, but it outweighs the digestibility, the bioavailability way outweighs the loss, if you like, from my perspective. And that's how I feel. And I follow these principles. I use them. I personally benefit from them. My clients have benefited. So for me, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
I agree. And she also used to tell me, you digest better, you won't have a stomach ache if you eat it without chewing well. And
Yes.
then she used to tell me, don't talk in the dining table, eat your food quietly. So
Yes.
you eat
Yes.
better, learn to enjoy your food. I made it to the best of my ability, learn to enjoy the taste of the food.
I love that.
So many things. I said, why is she so, because we were so eager to finish our food fast and rush
Yes.
out and start playing,
Yes.
when we were
Yes.
kids.
I
So,
know.
but she,
You're making me laugh because I'm saying exactly the same things to my children now. The same patterns are followed. And yes, I did exactly the same. But yes, so many reasons when we're eating our food, we are telling our bodies, it's kind of like it is a divine process. We're telling our bodies that you are ready to receive food now. The nourishment that you need to stay alive and thrive in this world, you're about to receive it now. So stop. So we don't want to be talking too much, because we're engaging elsewhere. We are inhaling a lot of air in the body. We don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be distracted by watching TV because we're not in tune with our own digestion. Have I eaten to 70% of my capacity? Have I overeaten? Am I hungry? Can I even taste the flavors? It's a mindfulness process. And when we don't honor that, they do impact our agni, absolutely, our digestive fire.
um, um, Carrie, I was just amazed how you go about, how much yoga and Ayurveda has reached beyond the ocean from India. And right
Mm.
there in Canada, you follow something that we followed all our lives when we were young. And we never questioned and we didn't know the answers, but you also learned the answers by practicing it. And you would always like to know the reason why you practice. So I think you people out there are much better than me because I just blindly follow it. And then you learn, you interact with people who also start following it. So I want to learn a little bit of your journey, your amazing journey, how you became what you are today.
Well, so I feel like when I see you and I see all the work that you did have done with your cookbooks and with food, I
Thank
feel,
you.
it goes much deeper, and I feel like you translate something about the knowledge of that through your writing and just how you are. And I've said this so many times that I just, yeah, am inspired by just you as a person. So I think that, you know, um, we all over time embody these things in our particular way, in our individual way. And, you know, it's true. It's so far, I'm over here in Canada. We have ice half the more than half the year, and for that reason, actually, I feel like Ayurveda is even more needed. I mean, it's needed the world over, but in places like where I live, when you see what is missing, you see how much that knowledge is needed.
Amazing.
Yeah, and also that this knowledge is, you know, what my teacher always says, it's for mankind, it's for humanity. It's for the, it's so encompassing. And I don't think a lot of times you get that online when you see some of the bits and pieces of Ayurveda. You don't get the massive nature of what it offers. And so that's been, you know, my continual journey, maybe forever, because it's, you know, it's never ending, the learning. We hear that all the time. You learn forever. The texts are just, you can't even finish. I mean, it's forever. And because everybody is different and the world is changing all the time. And so Ayurveda gives us this chance to live in a dynamic process, which a lot of systems and a lot of the way we live don't offer that, because we need to have this understanding of change and adaptation and what happens with ourselves over our lifespan and so on. And at the same time, to have something very rooted, which is this knowledge that Ayurveda offers, which is really profound. So I just feel really grateful that I happened upon, I don't know if I happened upon, I don't know if people happen upon things in their journey or if there's, you know, something there. I just always felt called. It started, you know, when I was quite young, and it started actually with music and dance, and then yoga. And once I entered into yoga, it became something that was very embodied. And once you start going into yoga and you start practicing and you start experiencing yourself in a different way, then it calls to you about food, and it calls to you about how do you care for yourself and how do you live in the world, and all of the questions that circle around that. So it's a long journey. I mean, that led me to nutrition, Western nutrition. I studied clinical nutrition, science degree, you know, very, very clinical. And it just, I always felt myself saying, where's the food? Where's the soul? Where's the food? And where's the context? So that was the other thing, that yoga and Ayurveda, especially through Ayurveda, it gives you a context. So I'm sure that you all feel this, is that every time some new information comes or some new experience, it's not just a random things out in the middle of no, it fits in. It's just say, and I hear this from people all the time, that that makes so much sense. That's always the response. That just makes so much sense. And then when you try it, like you, Minakshi was saying, that you practice it yourself, you try it, then it's obvious. So, you know, it's for me, it's that direct experience. And then interesting is when I think about, I started in nutrition, you know, 30 years ago, and it's changed so much over the years. Now the science is starting to get inklings of what Ayurveda is practicing and understanding. But one thing that Ayurveda still holds is that massive context. So we don't have um, independent pieces of information. We have a whole system, and that everything fits into that. And Minakshi, you know, got into already like nice and deep into that already, about Agni and about experiencing. And so so I just feel that this is this journey, and I feel really touched to have these relationships with people that you can connect on in this deeper level, and in this way, and that understand something about the practice of that and what it does in your life. And so I'm so grateful to be here and to have this closeness with you both. So,
It's so, so nice to hear all this. You girls are amazing for me. I just have to say a big namaste to you because I never knew answers for what I was doing from when I was young. Because that is the way, see, our community, the Brahmin community, there is a link between yoga, classical dance, food, nature, God, and the columns that we draw every day, because that is done for God. So
mm.
there is a pattern there. So I knew Ayurveda was part of it, but I didn't know Ayurveda is what it is, and I couldn't give reasons. I just followed it from when I was young. But as I grew older and then I wrote my books, then I realized there is a link with all these things. And then when I met people like you all, I was so amazed you could give answers to something I never even thought of, because I didn't have answers. I just followed it blindly. So you people gave me some nice answers. I want to ask Carrie first. How does your family feel about what you've taken to in your life, your food habits, your nature, I mean, your yoga and everything? Do they feel the same about you, or do they understand why is it you changed your diet because it makes it better for you? And do they feel the same way about the whole thing?
Well, I think that that's a question that we ask a lot of people because it's, Ayurveda is a practice,
Mm-hmm.
a commitment,
Mm-hmm.
and you reap the benefits. So it's not like it's a drudgery, but it's a way of thinking, it's a way of being, it's a way of committing, it's a way of self-care, and it's a way of questioning and and always keeping your mind open and learning more and so on. So that's I think a really big question for a lot of people. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I think because I started very young in my life, I started as a teenager doing yoga, and it was always part of my life. So before I even had my family life, um, this was already, a big part of my day to day and my views, I guess you could say. So because of that, I feel that maybe it's a different position than if I was a mom with kids later in life, married, and then suddenly I make a big life change. Maybe that's a little different. So I feel that our family as a whole evolves together in a way my husband does. I think I've written to you many times about how much my husband loves
Mm-hmm.
all the recipes, all your recipes. I,
That's so nice. That's
yeah.
really so nice. Meenakshi, I want you to share what your family thinks about the journey you're following and what you believe in, and you would like them to do the same. What do they feel about it? Oh, it's gone silent.
Yeah. We just
Okay,
lost.
yeah, got it. Uh,
We,
uh, Your voice. Have you
we,
muted? I can't hear your voice.
we lost your voice.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I
Okay.
yeah,
didn't. Sorry if
we
I missed
got
it. Yeah,
it.
sorry.
We got it. Okay.
Um,
Mm,
yeah, so no, I was just saying that I'm the situation with Carrie just mentioned, I think. So the person who did come into it late in life, even though I'd grown up with the principles, but
mm,
actually understanding Ayurveda for what it is and studying it and actually implementing it seriously into my life with my family did come late. I mean, I'm turning 50 this year, so this is
wow.
quite late to introduce it, and I have teenage kids. But surprisingly, and it's been over the last few years that we've taken this seriously, um, and everyone's just taken to it so well. It's not been objected. In the beginning, sometimes even now, it is a bit where if somebody wants to do something or eat something, and I'll advise them against it, whatever. But there's no question now. They understand. They just understand, and I think and then they're old enough. The kids are old enough, and I think my husband just. I think anyone at our age now seeing what they're seeing with, especially in the UK, with the system, with the NHS, with the medical system, the way things are going right now, it doesn't take much convincing to say that something needs to change, right? We can all see that every single person, everyone's got someone in their family that's suffering with some chronic illness or something mental or physical. So it's not difficult for people to see that. Um, And with regards to my children, they're actually seeing the benefits. Like if they do something against my advice, then they'll go on to see the consequences of it. You know, very minor things, but they'll see like the indigestion or you know certain things. So then they know again, like I said, the proof's in the pudding. So they know my mum was right when she said this. So then they make the effort not to. So it's actually becoming really easy now. And I don't overwhelm them. I don't overwhelm the family. I don't think that's the right way to do it. In fact, that's the way I guide my clients, and Carrie will agree. That's not the, you know, you do it baby steps and you do what they can do. Um, and yeah, so they've all taken to it really well.
Mhm. That's really nice. Um, Absolutely amazing with you girls, you know, because every day I see your stories on Instagram. You put up a story or you put up a live, and I've also started following your channel now. Minakshi, you just started it, I think. There's something new I'm learning every time. Though it was part of me all my life, but you give an answer to it. Have an answer to it when Carrie puts up posts in her page or on her story. I read it, then I said, okay, because I've never done any reading. I was just taught blindly, and then we just follow everything. And we didn't ask questions. See, those days we didn't have much. For example, when we sat down and ate, we didn't have devices. We didn't have anything. So all my grandmother used to say is, just quietly eat, don't make a noise, concentrate on what you're eating, enjoy. But today we have to tell them, keep your devices away, sit down at the table, eat your food. So times have changed. So there's too many things to occupy the child's mind, and we've got to tell them to concentrate on the food, because I think Ayurveda always says concentrate on what you're eating, because nowadays people are in such a tearing hurry to finish their work, go for their job and everything. I was told if you don't concentrate on the food you're eating, you're not going to be enjoying it, because food is made with a divinity. You know, you
Yeah.
get inside the kitchen, you make it with divinity. It could be any kind of food. But when you make with that kind of feeling, the food tastes really good. And it should be passed down to the table when the children sit down to eat. They should actually concentrate on what they're eating. So, those are all the explanations they offer now, and it's really nice. So, is there anything else you both would like to add? Because I'm every day I'm learning from you both. I might have written books. I might be talking about my culture. Everything was done blindly. I grew up learning it blindly, and I just follow it. But I'm learning so much from you girls. So every time I go to your posts, I enjoy it. So is there anything else you both would like to add? Any one of you? You're welcome to do it before we wind it.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I feel that that's so true about what you said about the slowing down, because we're in a very hyper agitated state in our nervous systems. So there is that aspect of needing to, it's related to absorption, it's related to the gut being able to be in a rest state. So we need to be in a rest and digest state. And then there's the aspect of the soul taking part, that we need to have a deeper nourishment, that we're not just, you know, I sometimes use this term that we're not just, you know, pails that we're putting food into. We're whole systems. Our digestion needs to experience the food on all levels. It needs to experience the calm, the love from the food, the nourishment from the food. And then there's the aspect that we need those moments in the day. We have very specific moments according to the sun, according to the circadian rhythm. And we need to stop at those times and acknowledge a moment also. Acknowledge a moment in the transition of time. Acknowledge this moment to be in one place and break up the day. I mean, the middle of the day, it's quite amazing that the lunch, of course, is middle of the day, the main meal when the pitta is the strongest, the sun is the highest. But it's also the time where we can have more depletion, because that very strong time of the day. So there's this other aspect of food and eating that has to do with all of the day is said is depletion. So from the moment you wake up till the time you go to sleep is depleting the system. It takes energy to do things. It's all of its functions have to occur. So first of all, we need those moments in the day. So, and then the night is for rejuvenation. That's the other half of it. The other half of the night is, that 24-hour period is we need that rejuvenation. But those moments of stopping
Yeah.
are so multifunctional. It's part of the day, part of giving our bodies this routine, being part of nature so that things can run properly, giving that time to the gut, giving the time to the mind, because the mind is concentrating, going everywhere. It needs to have a single mindedness for a time. So yeah, I feel like that's something we could probably have a whole a whole talk on. But what were you going to say, Minakshi?
No, I was going to, yeah, just touch on what you said, and just going back to Vicky, what you mentioned about children being taught to focus on their food and focus on just eating. I think you can take that even further and say we should be focusing on a single task at a time, no matter what we're doing. I think there's this culture of multitasking. I think if you're seen as a multitasker, you're seen as someone who's really successful, and you're seen as someone who's really clever, and someone who's going to achieve a lot. But now, even now, scientists and studies are now showing that actually, if you focus on one thing at a time, you're actually going to be more successful at it. And what you're doing in the process is you're calming your nervous system down, going back to what Carrie said again. We were actually never designed to multitask. And I think that's where everything's going wrong. We were
Mm,
never designed to multitask. And I think finally, that's why I love these holistic studies that come out, and medical, although we do call out the medical system, but even they are catching up, and they're realizing. So focusing on one thing at a time, you are going to be more successful, you're going to be more productive. And in the meantime, you're going to keep your nervous system calm so that your body can do everything else that it needs to do. And going back to Carrie said, your agni can function properly, you can digest your food properly, you can gain the benefits of it, and you can actually thrive in your life. So yeah, I think the game needs to shift from this multitasking craziness to this single-minded focus.
mm,
Uh, I also have one more thing. They talk about intermittent fasting these days, but where you eat after a few hours and you don't keep snacking all the time. And but this was always followed normally in my times. My father-in-law did that. My mother-in-law did that. It was a brunch at 9 o'clock in the morning. There was no breakfast in my house.
mm,
So he used to have a full brunch at 9 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, he used to have a cup of coffee. And then exactly at 5, he used to have a tiffin, what we call tiffin. Tiffin is something like a dosa, idli, everything, which is actually not a breakfast, but a dinner. So tiffin is actually a dinner in our community, but the whole concept has changed. So then I think we learn to eat the right quantity. We don't
Yes.
overeat. And also we feel hungry because we've given that gap. And then
Yes.
I think, is it true? You'll have to tell me, once you stop feeling hungry, you should just leave your food and not eat more than that. So it's just that bringing the old system back, and they call it intermittent fasting. So uh, um,
Absolutely.
so I don't know
Yeah.
what new terms they keep bringing out, but this was always followed in my term. Even today, if you ask me, my family has a breakfast, but I don't like a breakfast. I like to have brunch, but that never happens because I have to get into the routine that they are used to, my husband and
Yeah.
everybody. But
Yeah.
I prefer that same system. If somebody was to cook a nice meal for me and give me at 9 o'clock, I will just grab that than to
Yeah.
have a breakfast now. So I want you to talk about the authenticity of that,
Yeah.
because I've been an old timer in my habits.
I think it's the question of these ancient wisdom being repackaged in the modern world to present something new when you're right, absolutely it wasn't. And again, going back to what Carrie said, it's all in line with the sun. So at midday, the sun is at its peak. That's when our Agni, our digestive fire, is at its peak. And as the sun is setting, our Agni is also coming down.
Oh,
So
okay.
so in the evening, we need to have a light meal and eat early so that we have plenty of time to digest. And when we follow that routine, automatically, yes, we've left a longer gap, which they now call intermittent fasting. Um, so yeah, that's what it is. And regarding breakfast, now it's a tricky one because I think breakfast, again, I'd love to hear Carrie's view on this, but it would depend on the individual. Like I don't think there's one size fits all. But one thing I would like to say is, and I've learned this from my own experience, is that I think having a very light breakfast. Now, remember, if we're going by the sun in the morning, the sun is still rising. So again, it's not at its peak. So our digestion, our Agni is not at its peak. But the benefit of having a very light, easy to digest breakfast is that Agni, we're kind of stoking the fire and we're trying to get the Agni up again. So what we're doing is we're kind of stoking it with a nice warm cooked very light food. So breakfast should always I'm talking generally here. Again, it would work differently depending on what the client comes forward to me with what condition they're having. But generally, I think it's not a bad idea to have a very, very light breakfast, very, very light, very easy to digest according to what's going on with your body right now. And that's what I was going to say. Everything I eat, every meal is dictated by what's going on with my Agni. If I can feel my Agni is really strong, and my appetite is really good and I'm really hungry, then maybe I might go a little bit heavier because my body is demanding it, it's needing it. But if I see that my body doesn't need it, I think this video is what I'm going to try and get forward now. And this is with the YouTube channel that I'm launching, is trying to get people to connect back to their bodies, because we can't, there is no one answer for everyone. And I really do believe that when the day everybody starts to connect back to their own body, understanding their Agni, if every single person in the world did that, Carrie, I don't know if you agree, I honestly think it'll be a matter of time before we see disease and most diseases eliminated. Because I genuinely believe that's where everything's going wrong. So, but I'd love to hear Carrie's take on that.
I have
Yeah.
one more thing to offer before
Yeah.
Carrie says. A
Yeah.
lot of people say, "Oh, you must have a hearty breakfast," and they have a hearty breakfast, and they end up having a 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So since it's a hearty breakfast, they might end up having their lunch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, that becomes a hearty lunch because a lunch is, you make a lot of dishes. So I always get confused why so I feel people end up having too much of food all the time
Yes.
without quantifying it. So Carrie, you can answer the question.
Yeah, so much happening here. Yeah, so much to say. Definitely from a clinical perspective, it's variable.
Yeah.
So it has to be dependent on the individual. But from an overall standpoint, we do try to go with the phases of the sun. And part of that is that we have this routine nature that we need to be aligned with. So as long as our body has a set routine that is consistent, then the body knows when to be hungry. It knows when it's having food coming, so it's preparing. The Agni's prepared, and it knows it's eating early. The body knows it's eaten early. Now it can start to wind down and be ready for sleep and sleep well. So the body needs this cyclical routine of consistency that it can rely on and trust. So that's one thing. So sometimes it's, if to have one day like this, breakfast, another day not, another day big lunch, another day this, that can be very confusing for the body, first of all. And then, as was mentioned, the intermittent fasting in the evening is naturally happening if we try to eat 3 hours before bedtime. And then, of course, you don't eat until the morning. So you have a natural so-called
intermittent fasting.
Yeah, it has many purposes. So at night, our body, the pitta that we use to digest during the day, our main meal in the lunch, it has a function now in the brain because now it's processing the day And so it's actually metabolizing uh, material in your brain that's built up from the day. So it needs to be working on that rather than being awake, working on some other thing. So that's one thing. Um, and then the aspect of the breakfast and lunch and so on, again, that's personal, but we try to, if you haven't eaten from, let's say, 5 or 6, by the time the morning comes, we try to have a little something so that the body is being told, it's morning and we're moving on. And it's that introduction of Agni, because Agni needs a little bit of food to be ignited. So if it's not working well and we give too much heavy food, it can just make it more dampened. But it needs a little something to bring it to feed on. So, and then I was just going to mention about what you touched on. Um, I'm just thinking about the urges that are in Ayurveda. We have 14 urges that we should not suppress. One is hunger, one is thirst, and there's a number of other things as well. So this aspect of coming closer to your body, understanding the body better, and we have to have a little bit of education because, back a number of years ago, something called intuitive eating came out. Maybe you've heard that before. That was in the dietitian circle. And one thing I found about that was it's about coming closer to the body and so on. One thing that I found with that is that a lot of people are coming from a place where they don't have that connection, as Minakshi mentioned. So sometimes we need to give a support to bring back this body connection. And the 14 urges, we also talk about not suppressing them because we're basically counteracting our own intelligence, our body intelligence. So that's one of the beginning of diseases, or one of the causes of diseases is the suppression of these urges. So, in hunger, we talk about in Ayurveda that hunger is a disease, really, because it's an imbalance, and the remedy is food. Or thirst, the imbalance is thirst, and the remedy is to drink. So we need to understand if we're thirsty and give that drink. We need to understand that if we're hungry and give that drink. And we need to have the soil of the body prepared in a way that it's ready for when it's hungry, and we've set those routines. So that's another thing, coming back to what you're talking about, some of these practices that you just did, which is such a gift, because a lot of, probably Minakshi finds this as well, a lot of the education is just around regular creating routine, because some of that just fundamental uh, basic routines, difficult and not practiced and not understood. So there's two aspects. There's that we need to bring that intelligence back to the body, and then also create this foundation that people can rely on, and create this soil for everything else to grow out from. So
Exactly. Mother Earth has so much to offer if only we start worshipping her in the way we should. That's how Ayurveda came about, to worship everything around you, nature and all that. I want to jokingly say that in the Stone Ages, the Stone Age man just cooked and ate when he was hungry. He was he was never tempted. He didn't need an Ayurveda to say that. Just when he felt hungry, he knew he had to kill something, he had to cook it over the fire and then eat it, and he was satiated. So it's just we who are doing everything wrong, because we have so much of temptations around us. We want to eat something, we want to go out somewhere, we want to eat something that might not suit us at that moment. So you girls have been so full of knowledge, and I have learned so much from you. The right words, I can't get the right words. I can only talk about food and nature, but the right words like pitta, sattvic, tamasic, rajasic, you people are so well versed in all those things. So Thank you so much. Is there anything Minakshi wants to say in a concluding line before we finish this amazing conversation? You can go ahead, Minakshi.
No, I think yeah, you just summed it up beautifully, Vijay. And I think for anyone watching, I think if anyone's new to Ayurveda or finds the whole system quite overwhelming, which I understand can be, I would say just go back and connect with your gut and listen to your body, and
And also
you'll
follow
be
your
amazed.
channel because you give a lot of useful talks.
Yeah.
Definitely to follow your channel. I would request everybody who are watching this live and who would see the recorded thing later, I would request them to go and subscribe to Minakshi's channel because I think she talks a lot about our lifestyle, about how we should live, about how food, because food is everything in life. Food is energy, food is happiness, and you have to do the right kind of food in your life to have that right energy, to have that right happiness. Because I think once you're satiated with the right kind of food, you're extremely happy. So these are all things that you understand so much more better when it's explained like how you do in your channel.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, and in addition, so just say in addition with the food, also the lifestyle that goes with it. So it's like I think I just made a post where if food is extremely important, but if you could be eating the best food generally in your diet, but if you're eating it too late, or if you're not chewing it properly, or if you're eating it in very stressful environments, if you're eating it on the go in the car, all these things. So yes, it'll be better than if you're eating junk food in those conditions, but still, is you're not going to get the benefit. So combining the food with the lifestyle and the mindfulness and the presence and package it together is the recipe, I feel, for good health.
it's so easy to talk all these things. If only the children these days understood what we're trying to tell them, because they're always on the go. They're grabbing food from McDonald's, they're grabbing this from somewhere else. They have no time to eat a proper lunch or food at home because they're in a hurry to go everywhere. So, this is the challenge people like you both face when you're bringing up your children. And
Yeah.
I'm sure children will understand because they're very intelligent with all your lovely talk. So, this has been such a beautiful experience for me, and I'm sure it would have been for everybody else who followed us just now and listened to the whole music. I hope we have um, another time where we'll come back and connect with specific points about Ayurveda or yoga or nutrition or anything, and we'll connect back again. Until we meet again the next time, thank you, Minakshi. Thank you, Carrie, so much for agreeing to
Thank
come
you.
um, for this message that we wanted to give to everybody and have this beautiful talk. So we will definitely connect the next time. So until we meet the next time, bye to each one of you. Bye, girls.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you too. Bye. Uh,